Hello, welcome to Legal Awareness web series. Yesterday I had made one video about the controversial letter written by Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister to Honorable Chief Justice of India. The video has been very well received and many people have requested me to say few things about this letter in English. As I said that as a public educator, it is my responsibility to accept such request. Legal Awareness web series is not only the best YouTube channel on law, but it has made inroads in our remote areas. Many people from remote villages write to me. You will be glad to know that now we have 1.94 crore views and 13.35 crore minutes legal awareness web series videos have been watched. And as I said yesterday, that we have dedicated audience of 4.5 lakh subscribers. Now, there, as we say, that history repeats itself. So it is an unprecedented letter, but I am going to tell you an example from Andhra Pradesh itself. Way back in 1961, Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister D. Sanjeevya has written a letter to Union Home Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri complaining about the Chief Justice of Andhra Pradesh, Justice P. Chandra Reddy, making allegations that he is communal minded, he is acting at the behest of two judges, he is casteist. I was not able to really find out whether union government really transferred Chief Justice or not. Now, my dilemma in talking on this subject, as I said yesterday, is that I have huge respect for this young, dynamic Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, who is extremely popular, who travels, a lot, who talks to ordinary people, who has come up with many, many welfare schemes, who has very well managed COVID-19 and did lot of testing, who had passed bold resolution even on NRC. Yet, I find that like many others, even Chief Minister Jagan is also somewhat getting influenced by what I called yesterday predecessor syndrome. There are vice chancellors, there are bureaucrats, there are many officials who waste their time in saying that our predecessor was so bad, our predecessor did not do well. I think it is better that we add more amrit to the poison rather than all the time claiming that it is poison and X and Y is responsible for this poison. Those who think that history begins with them are having an erroneous opinion about themselves. Now, about Justice N.V. Ramanna, I had very little interaction with him. He was acting Chief Justice in Andhra Pradesh for a while, but what had impressed me most was his taking so moto a petition on the basis of a report which was published in Times of India, where Times of India had reported that in a period of less than 1 week, as many as 7 students on our campuses had committed suicide. Justice Ramanna treated this news item as a PIL and constituted a committee under my chairmanship of vice chancellors in the state of Andhra Pradesh. And then we submitted a report which was subsequently accepted by his successor, Chief Justice in Andhra Pradesh High Court. I am very sorry that had our recommendations been fully implemented, Rohit Vemula tragedy would not happen. I feel that our students are under huge academic stress and there is a need to relook at our curriculum. New education policy of Prime Minister Modi does make a welcome beginning in this sense and tries to address this question. Now, I have also read number of judgments written by Justice Ramanna. The latest judgment which I read from his lordship was about freedom of speech and expression in Jammu and Kashmir, the scope of section 144 and what kind of orders can be passed under 144. And therefore, I have a very high regard for him, because this is indeed a very authentic judgment on the whole question of right to internet, freedom of speech and expression, executives' powers in controlling freedom of speech, doctrine of proportionality. So this video I am making in the highest tradition of legal academia, in which it is the responsibility of legal academics that they educate masses about the current legal issues. And I have been criticizing judgments of high courts, judgments of Supreme Court, which every good legal academic ideally should do. I recall Lord Denning, the greatest judge of 20th century, having said that there is a court superior to House of Lords called Law Quarterly Review. So it is the responsibility of every legal academic to make an objective examination of legislative proposals as well as of judgments delivered by our courts. Of course, in doing it, he or she should not be attributing motives to judges. We should look at the judgment, and that's it. I would also say that I received number of letters, people asking me that you say something on this issue, clarify what is the matter. Because I have been writing in number of articles I have written in newspapers. Why do I write in newspapers? I write in newspapers for the same purpose, to create legal awareness. If you write in a journal, then your article is read by about 100 people. If you write in newspaper, your article is read by millions. Similarly, your videos today, this is a new media, it reaches millions of people. So the point is that I have been writing that independence of judiciary is not the right of judges. It is the right of people. And therefore, in this whole controversy, I feel that I am duty bound to speak on independence of judiciary, because somewhat this letter undermines independence of judiciary. And therefore, one individual or one judge is not my concern. My concern is the whole institution of judiciary. If I can criticize judgments of the court, I should also protect judges where they are targeted unnecessarily. Now, why I am saying so? Because this letter is not against one judge in Supreme Court, few judges in High Court, about Supreme Court working, about appointment of High Court judges. This letter raises far more serious questions. And those serious questions, I think, are to be addressed. Of course, you know the context, that there is a Supreme Court order saying that the cases, criminal cases against political class, former lawmakers, current lawmakers must be quickly disposed of. And then the Telangana High Court has also ordered that cases which CBI is dealing should also be disposed of quickly. Now, very quickly, let me state what is the law on the point. If you are not on impeachment motion, then Article 121 bars any discussion in Parliament on the conduct of judges. Similarly, Article 211 makes a similar bar in respect of legislative assemblies. So, conduct of judges, if you are not on the impeachment motion, cannot be debated and discussed in the legislature. Now, Chief Minister or a Prime Minister who is the leader of the House cannot do it in the House. Should he do it outside the House is the moot question. And since he is doing it outside the House, there are possibility of both Supreme Court and High Court, if they wish, that they may invoke their contempt power. Of course, I will go with Justice Krishna Iyer, that the shoulders of our judges are broad enough to accept the criticism, and therefore the High Court and Supreme Court may overlook this. That is their choice. But when you make such kind of statements and such kind of allegations, there is every likelihood of contempt power being invoked. Now, what are the allegations and what are why these allegations and discussions about them is important. Now it is said, for instance, that there are judges who are trying to counter the decisions of the state government. It is being said as many as 100 orders of the state government have been stayed by some judges of High Court of Andhra Pradesh. Now, my take is very clear. In policy matters, political thicket doctrine should operate, and ideally judges should not interfere with policy decisions. Whether you will have one capital or more than one capital, whether you will have state legislative council or not have state legislative council, are largely the political questions. But at the same time, we should also remember that if any decision is taken against constitutional principles, against provisions of law, then not 100, even 1,000 orders of any government can also be stayed. I think it is also said, and this is a oft repeated allegation which can be made about any political leader, that TDP leader amassed huge wealth by illegal means. What is new about it? Indian voters no more consider political corruption as a serious issue. So Sukhram, a leader of Congress, from whose house lakhs of rupees in cash were recovered, subsequently got elected. Number of leaders against whom corruption charges were there, they got elected. So this indeed has become a non-issue. But should we involve judges or judiciary in this political corruption and make such wild allegation to call such people as cohorts of some judge? I think this is too serious a matter. To say that one judge had close relationship with one chief minister, I will give you more details about this whole question of relationship and nepotism in a minute. But then judges are also human beings. They don't descend from heaven. They live in our society. They were lawyers before their elevation. They have their connections. Most of the judges who are appointed in India, they must have worked, many of them must have worked for government. And therefore they know not one chief minister, they know many chief ministers. No law in India prohibits that there should not be any relationship between a judge and a politician. So I think it is a non-issue. Similarly, there is a reference that Justice Chalmeshwar has put it on record that Justice Ramanna and Chandrababu Naidu had some relationship. I will give you details of that evidence as well in a minute. But I think that this is not in a good taste. Even to say that the letter of Justice Chalmeshwar and observations of Justice Ramanna are identical is factually wrong. I will give you details in a minute. Now, what is this whole controversy about? I think one big case which this letter makes is this, that it says that in 2016, when Chief Justice of India, Justice J.S. Keher was at the helm of affairs, then from Andhra Pradesh, acting Chief Justice, Justice Dilip Bhosle, who subsequently became Lokpal and then he resigned, recommended 6 names. A collegium headed by Justice Dilip Bhosle recommended 6 names. The Telangana Chief Minister cleared these names or gave his observations within 1 month. Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister was Chandrababu Naidu, and he slept over this file for 1 full year. And then he rejected 5 out of 6 names, talking about that these are the names of the relatives of judges, near and dear ones of judges, and lawyers, etc., etc. Now, one point which has been missed in this controversy is, if I am against somebody, as soon as his name is recommended, I would quickly act. to say that senior politician like Chandrababu Naidu was not aware of this principle, that if a state government does not give any reply on the recommendation by the High Court Collegium within 6 months, it shall be deemed that it has no objection to the recommended names. I am sure Chandrababu Naidu was aware of it, yet he kept quiet, and therefore even to blame Chandrababu Naidu in this matter may not be completely fair. Then when Chandrababu Naidu replied and said 5 out of 6 recommendees are either relatives of judges, they are juniors or they are near ones, on March 21st, then in March 24th, Justice Ramanna comes into picture. Now the rule is that when Collegium in Supreme Court is considering some names, for High Court, as you know, that the Collegium will have CJI plus 2 senior most judges. In this case, 2 senior most judges were Justice Deepak Mishra and Justice Chalmeshwar. CJI was Justice Keher. Then a judge who is there in the Supreme Court, who is familiar with the affairs of the High Court, is also consulted. It was in this capacity that Justice Ramanna was consulted. And Justice Ramanna also made a similar observation, but it is not identical, because he does not use word relatives, he uses word sciens. And he says 5 out of 6 recommendees are either the sciens of judges, or they are junior, or they are near ones. And as I said yesterday, scian is a crucial word, because here Justice Ramanna is accepting that these people are descendants, sons and daughters of noble families. He is not casting any aspersions on their families. Now, I think this is important. Is nepotism in judicial appointment has not been an issue for decades in India. I will take you to Mrs. Gandhi's regime in the context of Keshavanand Bharati, when an attempt was made prior to Keshavanand Bharati to pack the court. I will also discuss with you some of the recent controversies. Then you will understand that both Chandrababu Naidu as well as Justice Ramanna is addressing a problem which has been flagged by many others. Now, Justice P. Jagmohan Reddy, in his autobiography, The Judiciary I Served, has listed these events, that Mrs. Gandhi's government informally constituted a committee of 3 members. One was Mr. H.R. Gokhale, who was the law minister. Another was Steel Minister Mohan Kumar Mangalam. And the third one was Minister of Education S.S. Ray. And these 3 people were given the responsibility to ensure that judges who are likely to favor government gets elevated. Accordingly, on July 19, 1971, Justice D.G. Palekar, whom Gokhale knew well, was elevated. On 4th October 1971, Justice Matthew, who was close to Mohan Kumar Mangalam, was elevated. On 10 December 1971, Justice M.H. Beg was elevated on the directions of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. And M.H. Beg is allegedly tried to help the government by falling sick number of times during the long hearing of Keshavanand Bharati. On 14th August 1972, Justice S.N. Dwivedi of Allahabad High Court, who was a close relative of Hemwati Nandan Bahugna, who was a minister in Mrs. Gandhi's cabinet, was elevated. And Justice Dwivedi, in his speech before going to join in Supreme Court, said he is going to Supreme Court to overrule Golaknath. And it was Justice Dwivedi's name that the then Chief Justice Sikri had opposed, just like the name of M.H. Beg. On 28 August 1972, Justice Y.V. Chandrachud of Bombay was elevated. It seems that H.R. Gokhale knew him well, and then Law Commission Chairman Justice Gajendra Gatkar argued for him. And it is also alleged, I don't believe it, but it is alleged, that Justice Chandrachud changed his opinion in Keshavanand Bharati on the instance of Gokhale and Justice Gajendra Gatkar. On 14th August 1972, Justice A.K. Mukherjee was appointed at the instance of S.S. Ray. Somewhere I had read that Mrs. Gandhi's letter was delivered by S.S. Ray to Mr. Mukherjee. You come to Delhi, I need you here. So even in our golden period, when best of the judges were appointed, even though they were allegedly committed judges, yet relationship with politicians was very much taken into account. There is nothing new about it. Now, on the charge of nepotism, recently it was written somewhere that all the judges in Indian judiciary in last 70 years have come from just 400 families. Even Justice Krishna Iyer, in 1994, when second judge's case was decided, he is reportedly said that it may lead to nepotism and oligarchy. In my opinion, probably Justice Ramanna is referring to this issue when he is making that observation. In 2017, from Allahabad High Court, 73 names were recommended. It seems as many as 24 were relatives of politicians. Then in Allahabad, from Allahabad High Court, in 2019, a sitting judge, Justice R.N. Pandey, wrote to Prime Minister in an unprecedented manner, alleging nepotism, favoritism, and casteism. In 2018, Center itself objected to the recommendations made from Allahabad, saying that as many as 11 out of 33 are relatives of judges or juniors of judges. Even eminent lawyer, Mr. Fali Nariman, in his autobiography, Before Memory Fades, writes, and I quote, "When you name a lawyer who has done well, people ask you, from which chamber? The chamber is important. It establishes the hierarchy and cultural tradition in which the lawyer has been reared." Of course, he is talking in a different context about the training a lawyer has received, but it also impliedly admits that there is some kind of discrimination on the basis of the chamber where you have worked. In 2013, several names, as many as 6 names I think, were recommended from Punjab and Haryana High Court, when Justice A.K. Sikri, Justice Jasbir Singh, and Justice A.K. Mittal were members of the collegium. 1,000 lawyers had protested, had submitted a memorandum to President Pranab Mukherjee. Ultimately, the Supreme Court rejected few names and asked for reconsideration of 2 other names. Therefore, the problem with Justice Ramanna and, in my opinion, even Chandrababu Naidu are flagging, I think in good faith, they are raising the question of nepotism. In any case, in the final analysis, Justice Ramanna's opinion was not accepted, and collegium recommended the names which were sent by the High Court, and therefore no injustice was really done. That brings me to Jagan Mohan Reddy himself. I am conscious of the fact that there was sudden tragedy, the father died, who was hugely popular as a chief minister. In the best of the Congress traditions, where you have dynasties, so that Rajiv Gandhi succeeded Indira Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi is supposed to succeed Sonia Gandhi, why Jagan Mohan Reddy should not succeed his father? So some kind of injustice was done. But I am told that senior Congress leaders from Andhra Pradesh were not inclined, while the central leadership was sympathetic to Jagan Mohan Reddy. There have been cases against him. In 2012, it seems that the CBI filed cases against Jagan for amazing 1 lakh crore by misusing the office of his late father. Probably CBI, which Supreme Court had said to be a cage parrot under the influence of Congress government, was misusing its powers. Maybe the man is not guilty of corruption of this kind, 1 lakh crore. Maybe Congress governments harassed him because he became a rebel. But in all this, Justice Ramanna had not played any role. If you look at Justice Ramanna's own career, he was additional advocate general in Andhra Pradesh. He is elevated to High Court in 2000. In 2013, he becomes acting Chief Justice here, then get transferred to Delhi as Chief Justice. And in 2014, during UPA, he is elevated to Supreme Court. And during all this period, Chandrababu Naidu was not in power. Chandrababu Naidu will get power after 2014 election. By that time, Justice Ramanna was already in Supreme Court, and therefore Chandrababu Naidu had not played any role either in his appointment as High Court Chief Justice or in elevation in Supreme Court. Jagan himself had to go to prison for 1.5 years, was subsequently released on bail, but I am still giving benefit of doubt in the sense that maybe then CBI was misusing its powers in respect of him. Let the law take its own course. Let the courts determine whether he is guilty or not. Now, as far as this letter, controversial letter is concerned, there are many good points which Jagan makes in this letter. I agree with them. Of course, there are some points with which I disagree, and there are some points about which I have very serious reservations, because I consider them that they are not against X, Y, or Z, they are against the whole institution of judiciary. So Jagan begins his letter by saying that he is conscious of the context. He has taken an oath of allegiance of the Constitution. He says that there is a separation of powers between legislature, executive, and judiciary. He admits that there is a judicial review so that the legislature and executive does not overstep their limits. I agree with all this. And then he says that the independence of judiciary is to be guaranteed by a fair and impartial judiciary, because a fair and impartial judiciary is the ultimate guarantor of rights. True. How do you have independence of judiciary if all the time judges have to defend themselves? If false allegations are made against judges, how can they defend themselves? Unlike us, judges cannot speak except through their judgments. Then he says that the greatest good of greatest number should be there. I don't agree with it. In a constitutional democracy like ours, if the whole country is on one side and one person is on another side, and if that person's right has been violated, the right of that person must be guaranteed and protected. He talks of concentration of power and then refers to distribution of power. I entirely agree with him. Then he says that the only check on judges is their conscience and adherence to settled principles of jurisprudence. I would say he should also add constitution. I don't agree with judges' own conscience principle. Recently, Justice Arun Mishra, while demitting his office, has also said his conscience is clear. The conscience of judges is not that important. The judge has to decide case according to law. We are not courts of justices, we are courts of law. Now, the second part of his letter, which I feel is problematic. Here he says that immediately after taking over as chief minister, and he had such a popular mandate, which is true, he realized that the former chief minister has indulged in corruption, and he constituted a cabinet subcommittee on 26 June 2019, and there has been, a lot of land grabbing of some 4,000 acres of land. He also said that the former additional advocate general has also was also involved in some 80 acres of land. If Jagan was really fair and honest in making this allegation, a cabinet subcommittee is too low in hierarchy. Ideally, a judicial inquiry should have been ordered by him, as has been done by the Janta government in 1977 when Justice Shah Commission was appointed. Then there is a reference that there are judges in the High Court who get influenced by somebody. I think this is not right. Similarly, about the gag order, a reference has been made. There have been number of gag orders. Ideally, there should not be a gag order in a freedom of speech society. But Justice Swatantrata Kumar gag order, Delhi gang rape case gag order, in Gujarat about wire there was a gag order, in Allahabad High Court has passed a gag order when date of birth of Army Chief V.K. Singh was in question. It seems that a unit of army marched towards Delhi and there was a gag order. So gag order in this case may be good, may not be good, but it is not unprecedented. I had also read this order of 16 pages passed by Chief Justice Maheshwari. I didn't find anything strange in that order. And therefore, to say that High Court judges are not acting independently is a very serious charge. I have been telling my students that the real federalism in India is in judiciary, because Chief Justice of India is not the boss of High Courts. High Court Chief Justice and High Court judges are independent. Even Chief Justice of High Court is not the boss of brother judges. That is why MC Chagla was not interested in elevation to Supreme Court when Nehru himself offered him that elevation, because as Chief Justice of Maharashtra, he was the head of the judiciary of the entire state. While when you go to Supreme Court, you become 1 out of 30 now or 1 out of 33 now. So I don't think that our judges act under somebody's dictation. As law stands today, the Chief Justices are master of the roster. Ideally, Chief Justices should not act arbitrarily. Ideally, the roster should keep changing after a certain time. But just because some Chief Justice made some roster, we should not attribute motives to our judges. I would also like to say here that at the end of this letter, about which hangama hai, what is there in terms of prayer? Jagan has not sought anything substantial. He has not said anything against a particular judge. He has not requested even in-house inquiry. He is merely requesting the Chief Justice of India to initiate such steps as may be considered fit and proper to ensure state judiciary's neutrality. I believe that we must accept that our judges are neutral, our judges are impartial, our judges don't take dictation from anybody unless we have a very solid substantive evidence to believe otherwise. I personally feel that this case is not going further because on these kind of allegations, no in-house inquiry is likely to be ordered. Even if there is an in-house inquiry, clean chit is going to be the order. What is the procedure? For my viewers, the procedure is if there is an allegation against judges, the Chief Justice constitutes an in-house inquiry. If in-house inquiry indicts a judge, Chief Justice of India writes to the Government of India to initiate removal procedure. The impeachment motion can be admitted in the House only when it is signed by 50 MPs in Rajya Sabha or 100 MPs in Lok Sabha. Then the Speaker or the Chairperson of the House may admit, may not admit. You can recall how Vice President Venkaiah Naidu did not admit impeachment motion against Chief Justice Deepak Mishra. Then if motion is admitted, another inquiry is ordered which will consist of a Supreme Court judge, a Chief Justice and a distinguished jurist. And if this committee indicts somebody, then House will consider this motion, and then House has to pass the resolution by 2/3 majority, and then President can remove that particular judge. I don't think that in this matter anyone is going that far. But I would like to end my conversation this evening by saying that lately I have been observing a very unfortunate development, that whenever any judge's name is under consideration in Supreme Court for elevation from High Court to Supreme Court, lot of complaints, most of them fake and most of them motivated, are sent to the collegium. This is not a good sign. Similarly, when a senior most judge is going to take over as Chief Justice of India, there will be efforts to malign him. So about Justice Deepak Mishra, that suicide note by a former Arunachal Chief Minister making all kinds of allegations, that was in news. Then about Justice Gagoi, about his infamous press conference. One may disagree with Justice Gagoi on many matters, like Justice Gagoi's orders of sealed cover, Justice Gagoi's several orders about NRC, or his acceptance of nomination. But I think he richly deserved to be the Chief Justice of India, and Modi government did the right thing to appoint him as Chief Justice of India. Similarly, way back when Janata government was formed, and Justice Y.V. Chandrachud, who had given a judgment in ADM Jabalpur in favor of Indira Gandhi government, the matter came up for consideration. Shanti Bhushan, as law minister, did the right thing to advise the Prime Minister that we should go by the seniority principle. I believe in this case also, with whatever I have discussed, nothing substantial appears to be against Justice N.V. Ramanna. And therefore, this is not the case in which the principle of seniority can be overlooked. Ideally, we should go by the principle of seniority. Chief Justice of India should recommend his name. The government of India and the president should accept his name. And I feel really happy and satisfied to see Justice Ramanna's own statements, which he made about in a condolence meeting recently, where he said, it is important quality for a judge to withstand all pressures and odds, to stand up bravely against all obstacles. He went on to say that vibrant and independent judiciary is required in current times. The crucial word, in my opinion, is current times. At a time when there are writers saying that Indian judiciary has become more executive minded than the executive itself, I think we need bold judges like Justice H.R. Khanna. We need judges who will uphold the dignity of law. We need judges who will withstand all the pressure. If you like Legal Awareness web series, I request you to kindly subscribe our channel, widely share this video. If you have questions and comments, don't hesitate, write to me. In next video, I would be willing to take your questions and comments. Thank you very much.